CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Let's talk about the U.S. Treasury thinking about how to keep the U.S. CBDC, should there ever be one, private, right? There's different privacy norms in the U.S. as opposed to, say, China, where CBDC development has gone full steam ahead. Treasury is taking a cautious approach, trying to make sure that they can balance the benefits of putting this stuff on a digital ledger with the rightful concerns around people having privacy, right? And people having their transactions not monitored by the government that is issuing this CBDC. So the digital dollar conversation still very much in play. Unclear if it's going to come to pass in the US, but the Treasury is doing its due diligence, or so it seems. I'll toss this straight to Jen for her initial thoughts. What's your take on this Treasury headline?
I have so many takes on this, right? And I think that you can only really know how people are going to receive things and how they're going to work if you have an MVP and you do a pilot like so many countries are doing, right? Brazil is doing a pilot, Australia is doing a pilot, and they're testing out some of these wholesale and retail use cases. I think that kind of information would benefit this discussion. Maybe the U.S. is going to look to pilots overseas and compile information from those projects and then put it to work here in the U.S. One of the interesting tidbits in the reporting about the CBDCs that I picked up on this morning when I was reading these stories is that there is a concern that CBDCs are going to be so fast and so effective that it could encourage bank runs, or not encourage, but there's no process in place to prevent bank runs. People are going to be able to get their money so quickly that, there's not going to be any kind of infrastructure to stop that. I think the conversations around that are going to be really interesting, because if they want to prevent something that the current financial system prevents, it's going to take like a whole infrastructure change. It's going to take a whole rethinking of how these financial systems work. And I don't know. You know how I feel about CBDCs. So that's like my take on everything outside of the privacy stuff. But I'll pass it off to Will, and maybe we'll come back to the privacy.
Yeah, I mean, this headline's straight out 3 years ago, so nothing too new here. But we can go through the last 3 years and talk about what CBDCs have meant for the U.S., how political parties are thinking about them, and how individuals are thinking about them. I think at this point, most people think that some sort of CBDC-like structure will emerge. Whether it has a token or not doesn't really matter. Basically, the idea is just instant payments, and that the Fed or the Treasury will have more granular data on American spending habits than they do right now. And so it might be a CBDC, it might be something else, but probably will have those two components in and of itself. We're seeing so far that there's going to be a very bipartisan issue around CBDCs. That'd be like states, especially Republican-leaning states, are going to lean against CBDCs. Texas and Florida have already sort of moved against this, but Florida already implemented some sort of quote-unquote ban on any federal CBDC. That won't really hold up in court ever, because Florida is a part of the union, so it's not like they're able to not use federal money. But it was a nice political stunt, and I think as we go into the next election and maybe the 2028 election, when something could actually happen, this would be like a very big subject. So that's one thing to watch out of this. The second is, if other countries do adopt this and the U.S. wants to preserve its regime as like the head of the global currency with the dollar, they might get more serious about this. But I think for right now, this is sort of a mute discussion, because the Fed has Fed Now. It's rolling out in July. It has SWIFT. It's able to offboard anybody they want. They can onboard whoever they want. And that's not going to change necessarily just with a different token solution or a different tech solution. They already have the moat because they have the network effect of the dollar and its warships. Zach, I'll throw it over to you.
You have Yellen a few days ago saying how important it is for the dollar to be, that critical global currency. So that is very much in play. I think you're right to bring up sort of the political context, because the CBDC has emerged as sort of a political lightning rod in recent months, despite no seeming forward progress on this actually happening. So a lot of the rhetoric around the CBDCs, here's big bad government prying into your wallet. It kind of makes sense that Steele here, who's making this speech, will go out and say, hey, we're really working on this privacy stuff, guys. Like, the big bad government boogeyman may not be baked into this equation should we ever get there. So I think that political context is important because it is a little bit of cover from what has been increasingly like hot rhetoric being sort of rained down on the Biden administration in this instance. So the fact that this official will come out and say, hey, like, we're looking into privacy enhancing technology, should we do this, certainly fits interestingly into the political conversation around it. Because I think you're right, Will. Like, this is not, especially new, some of the stuff that we're seeing, but all of a sudden the rhetoric around it is quite new. So the fact that they're ramping up calls for really looking into these privacy enhancing technologies, should they ever do this thing, I think is interesting in the political context, at least. Will, saw your hand, tossing it to you.
Can we go back to that Janet Yellen photo? I absolutely love it, and I want to look at it for one more second because it's so good. Oh no, we just scrolled past it. Maybe we'll come back in a second. It's a great photo. She looks like a little, I don't know why they picked that photo. It's like whoever took it, obviously CoinDesk didn't take it, but whoever did take that photo was kind of conniving right there, right? Like, she looks like she's up to no good. They're playing against a CBDC bias here. Zach, going back to the privacy concerns here, I do feel like this is just giving lip service to some people who are afraid of a CBDC rolling out, because I think when it does happen, the U.S. government, they're not going to care about that, right? The IRS already has most of your information about your spending habits. So why would they, take a step forward and try to issue some sort of privacy around this? They have an interest in knowing about your spending habits. It just comes down to like the economics of the situation, right? They want to know where capital is flowing. And if they have granular data, that only betters their models, only betters what they're trying to do. Obviously, us on the hash, and I think people in crypto in general would not want that. But I think when this does come out, they're not really going to do much with that. Jen, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, we say this all the time, but I think there's so much education needed. I think this has become a political talking point. People in the industry talk about it a lot, but I think when we broaden out the pool, the everyday man on the street maybe doesn't really understand the intricacies of a CBDC. Maybe they think it's just a digital dollar. There's some data that's pointed to in that research where Americans were surveyed. I'm not sure the size of the sample pool. And they said 49% said that they just didn't know. And so I think maybe the elections are doing some of the job at kind of educating people, but there's like a larger gap here for Americans to really understand what a CBDC, I think, would mean. But Zach, I'll give it to you for last words.
All right, really quickly, some additional polling, sample size 3. Quickly, do you think that a U.S. digital dollar is going to be deployed? It's still very much in question as to whether or not it will happen, according to these remarks. Will, yes or no?
In a CBDC format, I think in the next 5 years, yes.
Jen, you?
I think yes.
I think no. I'm holding out. I think no.
Do you really think no, or are you just going against us?
Even a pilot program, though.
Like, it doesn't mean no. I really think no. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see.
The biggest CBD shill on the show doesn't think it's going to happen.
Bullish.
It's always keeping us on our toes.
What is Zach? Great Zach this morning, Zach.
Hey,
good job.
A head fake every now and then.